Hi everyone, and welcome to another demo from Stamp Anything. Today we're going to be making an easy to put together step card for a mom-to-be. So you're going to want to start off with a piece of heavy cardstock that's 11 by 4 1/4. And you're going to go ahead and score it at 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 4 1/4, 6, and at 8 1/4. And then you're just going to go ahead and accordion fold it up, and that is going to make the bottom half of your step card. Okay, and then you're going to also need to make your mats and the back of the card. So from the same cardstock, you're going to want to cut a back mat at 4 1/4 by 5, and that's what's going to be glued to make the height of your card. And then add a pattern paper 4 by 4 5/8 to mat it. And then 2 little strips, one at 4 1 5/8 and one at 4 1 1/8. So now that I have my pieces cut out, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to start putting together the base of my step card. So I'm going to first glue this patterned piece to the smallest part of the card down on the bottom, which is going to be front facing on the card. It's the first little step in your card. And you're just going to go ahead and center that onto the little area. And then you're going to skip the next section and go to the third, and that's where you're going to adhere and glue your next piece. That's 4 1 5/8. And you're going to go ahead and just glue that on. And that way when your card is folded, you see the patterned paper in the step area. Then you're going to take your back mat and your patterned paper, and you're going to go ahead and just mat that together. So just add your glue, and you're going to center it on as best as you can to the back mat. We're just using a pretty soft pastel plaid colored paper for our main piece in the back. Just going to center it on as best as you can. And then you're going to take this piece and you're going to glue this to the next, you're going to skip another section in your accordion, and then you're going to glue that to the next section to make the back of your card. And you'll still have one flap after this piece, and that is what makes the little stand part. So you just take this piece and you're just going to line it up into the fold area, and that is going to make the height of your card. And then you can see you still have the one flap in the back. That will be your stand. And now you have your easy self-standing step card. So we're going to go ahead now, we'll just put that off to the side. I wanted to see which pieces I was going to use on my project. So I have my girl, and then I have these decorative die cuts that we sell. One is from the Oh Baby line and one is from Banner Flags. I wasn't sure at this point which pieces I wanted to use. You can see there's a lot of different cute ones in the package. And I wanted to use one of the banners in the Banner Flags, not the one that came in the Oh Baby one, because it was too long for what I wanted it to do. So now here are just some of the pieces that I'm trying to decide which ones I want to use. You get all sorts of different ones in your package, and you get more than one copy. It's made out of a really nice thick cardstock, so it does take your Copic markers very well. So I was just playing around, seeing which I want to add. I know I wanted the crib and the little mobile, and I know I wanted banners up on the top, but I wasn't sure what else I wanted to put on my card. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that aside for now, and we're going to start coloring our image and then these little extra pieces, and then we'll figure out which ones we're going to use when we go ahead and put it together. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my Vanessa Mom-to-Be stamp, and I'm going to color her in my traditional light skin tone. If you've watched me color before, you know the process that I do when I do this. I always do 2 layers, and we use the same skin tone for this color combination. So I'm going to be starting with my E04. Just fix the light here. Okay, so I'm starting with E04, and I'm just going to start layering in where the darkest shadows I want on my girl to show up. I always like to do the little indent in her knee and then down the sides of her legs. Then we need to do the little hand around her belly and in the little fold of her other arm that's on top of her belly, hugging the belly. And then a little area on her neck. Then we're going to go in with our E11. And you're just going to go over the same lines you just put down, and you're going to extend it out just a little bit further so you can start blending those 2 colors together. Like so. Then you're going to repeat the process with your E21, going over the colors that you just put down, but extending even further. And that's all you're going to do with all of the markers that we use for the skin tone. You go over the last lines that you put and extend it a little further. That way you're blending out all the lines so it becomes nice and smooth as you go out further and further. Now we're going to take our E00 and repeat the process again. Just layering it out and extending it further. And then our final color is our E000. And just filling in the rest of the skin and saturating the rest of that paper for her little arms and her legs and her little neck area. And then you have your first layer done. And now you're going to go ahead and you're going to do the exact same thing once again. It's going to help with your blends, it's going to deepen your colors, and it's going to make your shading pop a little bit more too. So back with that E04, layering in those darkest shadows. Then going in with your E11, blending it out. And then you're going to take your E21, and it's all just repetitiveness. We've done this several times before. Just keep blending it out. Your E00, and then finally with your E000. And then you'll have a nice, pretty skin tone, all smoothly layered, darkest to lightest. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the same markers to do her face. So I'm going to start with that 𝐒𝐿4. And I'm just going on the underside of her headband for her forehead. And just laying down that 𝐒𝐿4, and then I'm going to go down the sides of her face to about that eyelash mark. And then with that 𝐒11, you're going to go over and start blending it out. But because the face is a bigger area, you're going to extend more here than you did on the legs or the arms because you have much more bigger area to fill. So you'll see that the area now that I'm doing with my 𝐒11 is a much bigger area than I had done just on the legs. And that goes for the next layer as well with your 𝐒21. You have to extend it further than you did with the legs, but go over it and smooth out that line. And you're just going to keep continuing to building up these layers, smoothing them as you go. Now our 𝐒00. And I'm going over those last colors and then bringing it out. And then a little over near her eyes and down the side of her cheek, so that I can start going around her eye. Now I'm going to take R20 to give her a little bit of color in her cheeks. Just going to go up on the side of her face and then around underneath of her eye on her little cheekbone area. And then I'm going to follow it on the opposite eye as well. Then I'm going to be taking my 𝐒00 and I'm going to just feather that end piece of the R20. I'm not going over all of the R20, just the end, to soften it up and to blend it into the skin. If I go over the whole thing of the R20, I'm going to start saturating that rosy colored cheek, and I don't want to do that. I want to keep it a nice rosy color. And now we're going to go ahead and do the same exact thing one more time, just to make our layers smoother and deeper in color. So back with that 𝐒04, going over, underneath that headband for her forehead, and then taking that 𝐒11, and really working the blend and extending it out to get a nice transition of the two colors. And then I'm going back in with my 𝐒21, again going over what I just put down, extending it out. And then my 𝐒00, again, just going over those past layers, making them all pretty as seamless as I can. Now back with that R20, brightening up those cheeks a little bit more. Now I'm going to take that 𝐒00 and I'm going to fan out those edges and then do underneath her mouth area. And then take my 𝐒00 and then finish the rest of her face and make sure the blend is nice and smooth. And there is our sweet little girl. So we need to do her hair and her clothing. So we're going to start with her clothing. I wanted to pull in that lime green from the plaid so it matches. So I decided that's what color I was going to do her dress and her headband and her shoes. So I'm just pulling some of my YG markers. Okay, so I'm going to start with my 𝐤𝐲07, and I'm going to lay down where I think the shadows are going to be on her little dress, and I'm also going to be very cautious of the round folds of where the baby is in the maternity dress here. So lay down those shadows there as well. And then I'm taking my 𝐤𝐲03 and I'm just going over that 𝐤𝐲07 and extending it further. And then I'm going to take my last color, which is my 𝐤𝐺00, and I'm just going to blend the rest of it out into her dress. And you want the part of her belly, the roundness of her belly, to have that light area on there. And now we're just going to repeat that process. Same markers, 𝐤𝐲07, 𝐤𝐲03, and 𝐤𝐺00. Laying down the darkest, then going in with your midtone. So that's our 𝐤𝐲03. And now our 𝐤𝐺00, just finishing off the dress. Okay, now we're going to do her headband as well. We're going to do the same colors again. Everything's going to match her headband and her shoes. So we're going to just flick in towards the sides towards the center rather, I'm sorry. Bring it towards the center, and then with our 𝐤𝐲03, you're going to go over that color, extend it a little bit further so you are closing in that gap towards the center. And now you have that little bit of a gap there, and that is just going to put that 𝐤𝐺00 on there to give that little bit of the shine right in the center of her headband. Now you're going to do this again. So you're going to darken it up with that 𝐤𝐺07. Back in with your 𝐤𝐺03. And then finishing it up with your 𝐤𝐺00. I forgot the little ruffle on the bottom of her dress, so I'm just quickly adding some color in there. Nothing crazy. Same colors, just adding a little bit into the ruffles. And now we're just going to go ahead and do her shoes really quick. They're super tiny, so they don't take a lot of coloring in. You're just going to do like each color 1/3 of the shoe. So 1/3 of the shoe, then your second color is going to go over that and extend it 1/3 further, and then your 𝐲00 will finish it up. So just super quick little shoes with a little bit of the shading in the dark corner. And then her little outfit is now going to be complete, and we can move on to our next section. So for her mouth, I just, let's see, oh, maybe I skipped, sorry, we're doing the hair, let's see. Looks like I'm pulling my markers for the hair at this point, so let's go ahead and we'll be doing hair. Okay, so I'm starting with 𝐸35. And I'm giving her a soft brunette hair color. And because she has long hair, you do need to have more than one starting point than just at the roots at the top of her hair. And that's why I have those ones coming from the side underneath her headband as well. That way I can continue some of that brunette down. Otherwise I would have too big of a gap to color with the colors, and then the hair just would not fall so seamlessly together. Then we're going to go in with 𝐸33. We're just going over those last colors and extending it further. There's not a big color difference between 𝐸33 and 𝐸35. So if you are coloring along and you're wondering why, that is, there's not a big color gap, but there is a little bit of a tone difference in there, and it will make a difference at the end. Now you're going to go in with 𝐸31, which is your lightest color, and you're just going to kind of connect them all together. So you have a little bit of a variation here going with the brunette, but we need to kick it up a notch. So this is when we're going to bring in our darkest color, which is our 𝐸47. And here's where the darkness starts to fall in. We're going to do the part up at the roots, and then that side piece coming down underneath the her face near her neck area, and going down on the back sides of that hair that's behind her face. And nice little long straggles work really well when you're doing this to add in that texture of that darker color. Now I'm just going from the tip and going around the little curve of her hair and bringing it around. And then I'm going to go back in with my 𝐸35 and go over and extend that darkest color we just put down. And now you're just blending it together, so it's not like this big darkness of roots on all parts of her hair. And then we have our 𝐸31. We're just bridging everything together to make sure that everything's smooth and put together. And now you can see she has some variation with that darker color in her hair. And I'm just going to add a little bit more because I really like contrast in my coloring with the hair. So just adding a little bit of strands back in for good measure. And now we have to flip her to do the other side. So we start with that 𝐸35. and down parts of the side of her hair. Now her hair's curving to the left on the side of her hair. It's not a mirror image of the left side of her body. Her hair is curving like it's all going towards the left. So just follow the lines that are in there, that are drawn on the stamp, and you'll get your the look of the hair that you want by following the curves that are already put in there for you. Now I'm using that E33. And now I'm going to go in with that E31. And just bridged it all together. Now I'm going to go back in with that darkest color, E47, putting in those darker strands up at the root, down by where her hair's coming out from underneath her headband, and then underneath her face, and in the back area of her hair that is underneath her face area, because that's where it would be the darkest. And you can see how the hair is curving, and I'm curving it right along with the lines that are drawn in there. If you follow the lines that are drawn on your stamps, you'll get the flow of how the clothing's supposed to fall and how the hair's supposed to fall. So always just use them as a guide. Back with that E35 to smooth out the dark color. And then that E31 just to tie it all together. And then one more time with that E47 just to add those few little dark strokes here and there to add the textured part to her hair. And there she is. She is all done, except for now we're going to do her mouth. And I took R56 and I colored in her whole entire mouth with that. And then I'm going to take my R89 just to put a little bit of a dark area on the right side of her mouth. And then back with my R59, and then just blend it out. And there's her mouth. Now we just want to add a little bit of visual interest and texture to her. So we're going to go back in with our now we're going to take 𝐂𝐲09 and we're just going to add a little bit of stippling into the darkest areas of the green area. It's not meant to be a shocking, difference in color. It's just to add some texture and some interest in those darker areas. And I'm just hitting it up into the area that has the shadow placed in the coloring. And then I'm just taking that 𝐂𝐲00 on the parts that may have gone into the light area a little bit more than it should have. This is just going to help saturate it and blend it out a little bit more. And now I'm going to take a white gel pen and I'm just going to go ahead and put the dots in her eye. And I'm going to use it to clean up any areas that I might have gone outside of the line in my coloring. It's just a really quick way to do some cleanups for your coloring. You could also use your colorless blender, but for me it's just quicker to use the white gel pen. Okay, so now we have all these little bits that I'm trying to decide which ones I want to use. And I know I want to use that banner. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to use all of the colors that we've used either on her dress or in her hair or whatever, and I'm going to use all those same colors, and I'm just going to go ahead and color up all of these pieces that I'm adding into my card so that they all coordinate really nicely together. So there was my 𝐤𝐢𝐭9, and I'm using my 𝐤𝐤𝐿7. And I did I skipped every 2 banners, so it was on every 3rd one. I colored the green color. And then my 𝐤𝐤𝐿3. And then finally that 𝐤𝐤00. And I pulled my decorative paper out first, so I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to use that plaid, and I knew I wanted to use the yellow polka dots to keep this a neutral card. And then that way I was able to then pull the colors from the plaid that I wanted for, you know, her clothing and for, you know, the little extras of what I'm doing here. Some, like I said, like to color first and then pick papers to coordinate. I like to pick my paper and then coordinate my coloring to my paper to match. So I'm just pulling some yellows. That was 𝐤19, and now we're on 𝐤13. Just to add some pale yellows to the mix. And then 𝐤00 as my final color in this yellow blend. It's a very, very pale yellow. But again, this is my baby card, so I wanted everything to be pretty pale. And then I decided I'll do those last 2 flags in a pale blue. So I'm taking B02 as my darkest color, a very small amount, because I don't want a dark, dark blue. Then we have our B01. And then our B000, blending it all out. Just to add some color to the banner. And I'll use these colors again when we do the mobile. So I'm taking a white gel pen and I'm just adding some polka dots to some of the banner pieces, not all of them, just to add a little bit more fun to them. So I put them on the blue and the green. Doesn't show up on all of it, but you can see there's a little bit of texture there. And you can see how nicely it ties in with all the other colors. So now we're going to do our mobile. So we're just going to use the same yellows that we've already used. So it's the 𝐤19. Just doing the stars, and then we're going to do the moon as well. Now our 𝐤13. And then our 𝐤00. And there's our cute little stars. And now we're going to go ahead and do the moon as well. Using, again, the same colors over and over, just so everything's going to coordinate and tie together really nicely. Okay, and then for the clouds, I'm just going to be using B01 and B quad 0. So here's my B01, and I'm just going to do a little bit around some of the cloud the little bubbly parts of the cloud, but I'm not going around the whole entire thing because I just want to add a little hint of color to it. I don't want the whole thing to be blue. And now my B000, 4 zeros, blending that out like so. And then I'm going to grab my colorless blender, which is your 0 marker, and I'm just going over into the centers and around the edges to soften it up. Now I need to figure out what I was going to do with the dots, so I decided that in the plaid there was like a mauve rose color, so I decided that I would pull colors to tie that in. So I'm going to use R85. I'm just going around the one side of the balls on the mobile. And then we're going to use our R83, I believe. Yes, R83. And then finish it off with R81. And it's a rosy, mauvey pink type color tone. And I thought it just pulled together the card, the plaid in the card. Now for that, the wooden stick area on the mobile, we're just going to be using the colors that we used on her hair. So we're using our E35. E33. And then your E31. But I wanted to darken it up, so again I bring out my E47. And I'm just doing those edges pieces, flicking in towards the center just to darken it up a little bit, and then repeating with my E35. And then my E31. And now I have the cute little mobile done. But I wanted to do that little texture effect again, so I'm just using my darkest blue, adding some stippling to the cloud, just adding that texture to it. So next we're going to do the crib. So we know we want to do that to look kind of like the wood as well. So I'm just going to do the same thing we just did on that other wood piece. Start off with my E35. I'm just going to lay down the areas of the wood part of the crib. And of course you can make your cribs any colors you want. You can do them in blues and pinks and anything, purples, lilacs, greens, whatever you want. I just decided I would keep using the same colors. I wanted to keep it all in the same family. And so I'm deciding to do it like a wood coloring. Now my E33. Making sure you get the centers of the crib posts there as well. And then my 𝐒3_1, I'm going to close the gap between those colors. Just blending it so it's all smooth. And then when this is done, we're going to go over it one more time, adding in that 𝐒49 to darken in certain areas of the crib. And we're just going to do certain areas here as well. We're going to do the sides of the main posts. Just flicking in that 𝐒47. And then going over with the 𝐒35. And then the 𝐒31. And you're just darkening the tones up. And now I'm going to do the horizontal bars and then a little bit on the vertical ones just to add like a shadowy area. So we're doing our top and bottom rail. And then I'm just going to come from the top side down on the inside rails here, just to add a little bit of a shadow, but not going on the upside, just going down. And then our 𝐒35. Blending it out. And then you can see how it's keeping the top part dark and it's going into the light. Just adds a little nice little visual aid to your coloring when you add little parts of shadows and then hitting the light on the bottom. And then for the crib sheet, I just kept it to do in yellow, keeping my card still neutral. So yellow is the color I chose. So I'm just laying down some Y13. And then I'm going in with my Y00. You want to be careful not to hit the browns that you put down on the crib because your pale yellow could pick up that brown and smear into the coloring of your yellow. So make sure you're doing each little section and you're not going across what you just colored. And then I'm going to do the little pillow area. And I just needed to darken that up a little so you could see the difference. And then I'm blending that out. Okay, and then same as before, we're taking our darkest color. We're just going to add a little bit of stippling. And we're going to start on one side thicker and then have it go a little bit thin towards the one side, just so it adds that visual interest. And then going over it to help blot them out. And there is our crib. Okay, and then I decided I could probably do one more. So I decided we would do the baby blocks. And so I'm just taking those rosy colors of the R85. And I'm just starting to lay down some colors. I don't do a whole bunch of shading in this area with the baby blocks, just on a few pieces here and there, only because there's so many colors that are going to go into this one little piece because of each side of the square showing. But I'm just going to be using the same markers we've used in just different combinations, laying, yellows here, greens there, blue there. You can color this any combination that you want. You don't have to copy the exact one that I'm doing. Just lay down different colors in different variations of where you want. And again, I just chose to use the same colors. That way I knew that it was all going to coordinate with that plaid paper, pick up the colors in that plaid paper, and match the other colorings that I've done. So again, I really didn't do a whole bunch of shading on this at all. I just started using the colors in different ways. So just have fun and just mix it up however you want. And I'm sorry I'm a little off camera here. But I'm just using the exact markers that we already had laid out. Makes it really fun and easy to keep it all together in that way. So just doing a mix of greens and yellows and blues and pinks. And there were still other pieces I could have used. There was the car carrier, and there was also the baby stroller or the pram. But I just decided I wanted to use the baby blocks because it just, I thought, fit better of where I wanted it to go on my card. But you could always do whichever decorative die cuts you want decorating your card. So I'm just continuing coloring them all in, switching up the markers. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason as to why I put color, the blue in this space or the green in that space. It was just whatever I happened to pick up at the moment and just kind of went with it. Just wanted to have it tie together. So again, just using what you already have, already laid out. And you didn't even have to mix the colors. Some baby blocks, they're all just like that wood color, and just the letters and the icons on them are colors. You could do it that way too to make them look like wood blocks if you wanted to use different shades of the browns. However you want. That's what's great about coloring. There's no wrong or right to the colors you choose. It's whatever you like and whatever makes you happy with the colors. I tend to be drawn to yellow and green because they're my favorite colors. So a lot of the times I always seem to be using the same yellow and green combos. And we tend to pick our favorite colors when we're coloring. And there's nothing wrong with that. just continue to have fun with it. And we're just going to be finishing up on the main coloring here. Just a few more sections left to do. And we're just now going to do that little stippling again on our baby block. And again, it just adds a little bit of added interest to what your coloring is going through. But you don't have to do that if you didn't want to. But it really is great too if you don't do a lot of shading, because this actually can help trick the eye into thinking that there's shading. So if you're still learning how to apply the color in your shading areas, this will actually help you as well. Give that false illusion that there are the shadows in these areas. I also like to use my colored pencils and Gamma-Sol to do shading, and I'll try to remember to do that in another demo to show you. There's so many different ways that you can add shading. You can even add shading just with the toner markers. You don't even have to go crazy buying a whole bunch of Copic markers. You can use your toners to actually put in shading as well. Okay, so I don't personally like the outline on the die cut, so I'm going to fussy cut that off a camera because the white around them are too thick for me. So right now I'm just trying to eyeball how I want to put my card together. As you can see how nice the colors go with that plaid paper. It's like perfect. I love it. So I'm just gonna go off camera and fussy cut all of my little die cut pieces out. You can keep them as thick as you want. I'm just gonna cut them down really quick and we'll be back and assemble. Okay, so now I have all of my cuts fussy cut it out, and I'm going to go ahead now and we're going to just assemble our card. So I know that I want my baby mobile and my banner on the back part of my card, and I know some parts are going to need to be pop dotted. So I know I want the mobile because I cut them the way I did. That makes them look a little bit loose like a mobile would. I want to be able to pop dot it. So I'm just going to cut some foam tape to put on this backing area. Now obviously if I didn't fussy cut it as much as I did, I'd have more areas to add the foam tape. So I don't have that much areas with how much I ended up cutting out. But I do have the areas on the cloud, so I can also put some foam tape on the cloud there. And I know I also want the banner to be on the top. And if I'm going to have the mobile pop dotted, that means I'm going to need to have my banners pop dotted as well, because it needs to go on top of that. So I'm just going to get some more foam tape, and I'm just going to cut quick squares to put on the back of all of these little banner pieces. Like so. Just quickly add those on the backs of each little piece. Just get them down there. And I'm short one piece, so let me grab one more. Okay, so I want my banner to go across here, and then I want it to go on top of my mobile. So let's remove our backing tape. Oops. There's always one backing tape that always gives you a heck of a time trying to get off, and it's this last one, of course. There we go. Okay, so I want the edge of the banners to be at the top and then also at the side of the card. I want it to hit on both areas, so I'm gonna go ahead now and place that down. And then I'm gonna take my mobile and push it a little bit underneath as best as I can, like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this piece down as well. I will have an uh-oh moment in a minute after I put my mobile down and then I try to line up my crib. We're going to see that in doing so, my mobile is actually too far down and gets covered by the crib. So I have to remove that piece and move it up to make it taller. But I wanted the banner to be above. So I'm going to go and first figure out where this crib is going to go. And I know that I need to have it on the edge of the fold. If you put it down in the valley of the accordion, too much of your images are going to be covered up. So you need to put it on the top fold of the accordion. So the bottom piece will cover part of your crib, but now I also know how high up I need my mobile to be. But I wanted my mobile to be underneath the banner initially. So when I tried to move the banner piece at this time, unfortunately I ended up ripping part of my card. The paper underneath, and then I realized, okay, nope, the banner is going to have to stay there, and now the mobile is just going to have to go on top. So that is what ended up happening there, and then I could go ahead and place it there. Now I didn't know if I wanted my girl to be on the front or in the second fold, so I'm trying to just eyeball where I want these other pieces to go. So I know I want the baby blocks to go on this first front panel. So I'm just going to glue the bottom half of the baby blocks and go ahead and adhere that to the bottom. And you can see when you have the card folded flat, like I'm working on right now, you can see all of the elements. So when it comes out of the envelope for your recipient, they're going to see the card flattened like that. So that's why you want to be able to have all of your elements where you want them to be and lined up the way that you want them to be. So when it's lined, laying flat, they get the whole idea of the card. Because then when it pops open and they're looking at it from the point of view of being in front of the accordion, they still see all of those elements in the exact same way. So I'm just gluing down the little parts of the mobile so it doesn't get caught up on anything and ends up tearing at a later date. So I'm just gluing those little bits on there. And now you can see here's my card all folded, and when it's opened up, it all lines up. Now the back flap of your accordion, you can trim it. Just trim it in a small amount. as you start trimming it up, that last part that is making the stand, like the kickstand of your card, that will determine the angle of your card. So you can always trim some of it off if you wanted to. And that is our card. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you again next time. Bye!